Released in 1991, Pilotwings for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was a groundbreaking game that showcased the capabilities of the console and introduced many players to the thrill of flight simulation. Developed by Nintendo, Pilotwings was not only a technical marvel for its time, but also an essential part of the Super Nintendo launch lineup that helped set the tone for the console's future. With its unique blend of skill-based gameplay and innovative use of graphics, the game became a beloved classic and a notable entry in Nintendo's catalog. The development was driven by Shigeru Miyamoto, the legendary game designer behind titles like Super Mario and The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo's internal development team, Nintendo Entertainment Analysis and Development, took on the challenge of creating a game that would highlight the new capabilities of the Super Nintendo, particularly the Mode 7 graphics technology. Mode 7 allowed for the rotation and scaling of background layers, creating the illusion of 3D environments, a perfect fit for a flight simulation game. The idea behind Pilotwings was to provide a light-hearted and accessible experience, while still offering a challenging test of precision and timing. The development team wanted to create a game that captured the thrill of flight without the complexity typically associated with flight simulators. The game's creation was heavily inspired by early flight sims, arcade classics, and Nintendo's desire to make something visually impressive that could appeal to a broad audience. The development process focused heavily on perfecting the feel of flight and the visuals, with the Mode 7 graphics providing a sense of depth and realism that had not been seen before on home consoles. Miyamoto and his team dedicated a lot of time to fine-tuning the controls, ensuring they struck the right balance between arcade-style play and simulation. The game was released in Japan in 1991 and quickly followed in North America and Europe, where it became a showcase title for the Super Nintendo. Unlike many other Nintendo titles, Pilotwings doesn't have a deep or complex story. Instead, the game provides a straightforward, goal-oriented narrative that revolves around a flight training school. The player takes on the role of a student pilot who must pass a series of flying lessons in order to earn licenses and ultimately become a licensed pilot. Throughout the game, the player encounters various instructors who guide them through different challenges and rate their performance. As the player progresses, they earn new pilot licenses, allowing them to tackle more advanced and difficult missions. These challenges range from basic skydiving to helicopter rescues, each requiring a different set of skills. While the story remains minimal, the sense of progression and the humorous personalities of the instructors add charm to the game. The climax of the game introduces a dramatic twist when the player is required to conduct a rescue mission, using a military helicopter to save hostages from an enemy base. This unexpected turn adds a sense of urgency and excitement to the final stages of the game, giving players a satisfying conclusion to their training journey. Pilotwings is all about mastering different types of flight and aviation challenges. Each mode of flight requires unique skills, with controls that emphasize precision and timing. The game features several distinct flight modes, each offering its own unique challenge. Light plane, a small biplane where players must navigate through floating rings, land on designated runways, and hit specific targets. Skydiving, players jump from a plane and must control their descent, guiding themselves through a series of floating rings before deploying their parachute and landing on a target. Rocket belt, a jetpack-like device that allows players to hover and fly around obstacle courses, requiring careful use of fuel and thrusters. Hang glider, a mode that emphasizes wind currents, requiring players to glide and soar to specific targets while managing altitude and landing precision. Each level is scored based on the player's accuracy, timing, and ability to meet specific objectives. Points are awarded for precise landings, accurate target hits, and maneuvering through rings. Earning high scores unlocks new licenses and grants access to more advanced challenges. As players advance through the game, the difficulty increases, introducing more complex tasks and environmental challenges. The game starts with straightforward objectives, but later missions involve wind gusts, narrow landings, and tight time constraints, pushing players to master each flight mode. The game's standout feature is its use of Mode 7 graphics, which allowed the Super Nintendo to simulate 3D environments. This graphical trick gave Pilotwings a sense of depth and motion that was revolutionary at the time. Whether it's the bird's eye view during hang gliding or the forward-facing perspective while flying the light plane, Mode 7 technology made the game a visual spectacle for its era. The final stages of the game feature a helicopter rescue mission, a dramatic shift in gameplay from the flight school challenges. Players must navigate hostile environments, dodge enemy fire, and rescue hostages, providing a surprising and thrilling conclusion to the game. It was one of the first games to fully utilize Mode 7 graphics, a feature unique to the Super Nintendo that allowed for scaling and rotation of background layers. This gave the game a pseudo 3D effect that was groundbreaking for its time, and set the stage for other Mode 7 titles like Super Mario Kart and F-Zero. Pilotwings was part of the early Super Nintendo lineup, released shortly after the console's launch. It served as a tech demo of sorts, showing off what the Super Nintendo could do and helping to drive early sales of the system. Its inclusion alongside Super Mario World demonstrated the Super Nintendo's potential to deliver a wide range of gaming experiences. While it remained relatively accessible compared to full-blown flight simulators, it laid the groundwork for future Nintendo titles that explored flight. The game's popularity led to the development of Pilotwings 64 for the Nintendo 64, which expanded upon the concept with improved graphics and a larger variety of challenges. Each of the game's flight instructors had their own distinct personality, adding a layer of charm to the otherwise straightforward gameplay. From the stern and serious Tony to the laid-back and encouraging Shirley, these characters helped to create a lighthearted and fun atmosphere. Though it appears simple, it is known for its surprisingly challenging gameplay, requiring patience and careful control. Perfect landings and high scores take practice, and the game's demanding scoring system can be punishing for new players, making it a classic example of a game that is easy to learn, hard to master. The success of Pilotwings influenced the development of other flight-based games and arcade-style simulators, with its mix of realistic physics and whimsical challenges serving as a model for future titles. Games like Wii Sports Resort and Pilotwings Resort on the 3DS can trace their roots back to this Super Nintendo classic. An interesting Easter egg in the game involves the background sky. If you look closely at certain times during gameplay, you can spot a face in the clouds. This subtle and playful inclusion is just one example of Nintendo's attention to detail and their desire to add a touch of personality to their games. Pilotwings has maintained a loyal fan base over the years, remembered fondly by gamers for its innovative use of Mode 7 graphics and its unique take on flight simulation. It remains a benchmark for early Super Nintendo games that demonstrated the potential of the console, offering a fresh alternative to more traditional genres like platformers and action games. Its influence can be seen in various titles that followed, and it helped establish a long-running series that would continue with Pilotwings 64 and Pilotwings Resort. Though the franchise never achieved the mainstream popularity of other Nintendo series like Mario or Zelda, it holds a special place in the hearts of gamers who appreciate its charm, challenge, and technical achievements. With Pilotwings, Nintendo proved that flight-based games could be both accessible and challenging, and they succeeded in creating a game that captured the joy of flying without bogging down players with complicated controls. It's a title that stands as a testament to the Super Nintendo era, an era of experimentation, technical innovation, and bold new directions in gaming. Pilotwings was not just a flight simulation game, it was a statement of what was possible with the technology of the time. It pushed boundaries with its Mode 7 graphics, introduced players to the thrill of virtual aviation, and became an important part of the console library. For many, it was their first taste of flight, and a challenge that demanded precision, patience, and a steady hand. The legacy of Pilotwings endures, remembered as a pioneering title that invited players to take to the skies and experience the joy of flight on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.